8 years ago, I almost died. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the story of how I held on to my life for 4 days, even when it felt like everything was going wrong. The year was 2017. My husband Neil and I lived in Bowerman, Montana. He had just finished a master's program, and we were getting ready to move to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so he could continue graduate studies there. 2 weeks before we were set to move, I found out I had an ectopic pregnancy. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's when the fertilized egg implants in the fallopian tube instead of making it all the way down to the uterus where it's supposed to be. I had great medical care there, and they tracked very closely and managed it so my pregnancy levels were almost to zero when we were ready to move, and they gave us the green light to make the move. They felt that it would be safe. We planned to make the trip from Montana to Pittsburgh in 4 days. Our first stop was Bismarck, North Dakota. We left on a beautiful Montana morning, blue sky, and enjoyed our drive through eastern Montana. We made it all the way to Theodore Roosevelt National Park. We pulled off on a scenic overlook when suddenly I felt an intense pressure in my lower abdomen. I felt like I couldn't take a deep breath, and I was having intense pain radiating to my shoulder. We stopped and decided to keep driving. The warning signs I had heard were bleeding and intense, sharp abdominal pain, and I didn't really feel like that fit the bill, so we kept driving to Bismarck. We got to the motel, I tried to rest, and I just didn't feel like things were right, so we went into the ER there around 2 a.m. The doctor did some imaging, and he came back to the room. He said there was some fluid in my abdomen, but he felt like we could keep making the trip. So we really had no choice but to go back to our motel. We made the rest of the trip to Michigan, where our parents were, becoming increasingly anxious to make it to Pittsburgh. We knew there would be great medical care there. We felt like we had done our due diligence by going into the hospital in Bismarck, and we felt like we just needed to get to Pittsburgh. Several days passed. On the morning of the moving day, we were just ready to get on the road. We were going to have a moving caravan that day. It was me and Neil in the U-Haul with our car in tow in the first vehicle, my in-laws in the second car, my mom, 2 sisters, and my 12-year-old brother in the third car. The trip from Michigan to Pittsburgh takes about 5 hours on paper. We figured it would take a little bit longer because of the U-Haul, but we knew we would still get there in good time. We drove through northern Ohio without any difficulty. We got through Youngstown, and we were just making it to western Pennsylvania. We were starting to make the southern descent through western Pennsylvania into Interstate 376 when my in-laws, who were in the car the furthest back, started to get into some slower traffic as we were merging. The car in front of them came to complete stop, and so they slammed on their brakes. And behind them, a semi could not stop in time and hit the back of their car. And they pulled over to reassess the damage. My father-in-law recently told me that when they stopped to get out and look, the damage that was sustained on their car was just the indentation of the bolt from the semi front bumper. So it was minimal. We met up again at a truck stop not too far after that accident and decided to keep going. Shortly after we got back on the road, we were in the cab with the U-Haul and we heard a loud boom. So we pulled over to the side of the road in the U-Haul. My husband got out on the busy highway and went to look, and sure enough, a tire had blown. So we luckily were right in front of the exit, so he maneuvered the U-Haul off the exit, and the other 2 cars were there. We called roadside assistance, and it was decided at the time that I would take over for driving my father-in-law's place to drive my mother-in-law, who did not like driving in the city. And my mother would come with us. We would drive ahead. My father would wait there with my husband for roadside assistance to come and fix the tire. While we were at that stop, we realized that my husband didn't have his set of keys that had the key to the lock up with the U-Haul. So he figured he probably had lost them when he got out on the side of the road to check the tire. So they were also going to have to find a mechanic shop or somewhere where they could cut the lock so we could actually unload our stuff when we got to the house. So they were there, and we drove on ahead. So we were driving into Pittsburgh. And for those of you who haven't been to Pittsburgh before, One does not simply drive into Pittsburgh for the first time. This is a city that is built on a confluence of 3 rivers, and it is very hilly terrain. So roads there have these incredible grades, and in some places there are staircases instead of sidewalks. It is that steep. So I was driving white knuckle to our apartment, which was near the city center. We finally made it. About 5 p.m. I think, I pulled up to the side of the road to get out, and I feel my phone ringing. Earlier that day, as we were driving, I had been making a series of phone calls, trying to get a hold of doctor's office, just calling at random to set an appointment so that I could be seen by someone that week. So it was a nurse. When I got out, I picked up the phone. It was a nurse from a doctor's office. I don't know her name. I never went back to this doctor's office after I had been there in Pittsburgh. She was calling to say she was about ready to leave work and go home, but I was just on her mind, and she wanted to call and make sure that I was going to go into the ER that night. And I'm a people pleaser. I wasn't planning to go in again, but I said, yes, I'll go in. So about an hour and a half later, my husband and father-in-law show up. The U-Haul's unlocked. They unload a couple things, and then I tell my husband what the nurse said when she called, and we decided we should go in. So we drove our car a mere 2 miles to the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center's McGee Women's Hospital. I'm still not feeling great at this time, but I walk up to the registration desk and I tell the lady that's sitting there, we just moved to the city today. I know I have an ectopic pregnancy. We were just at the ER 2 days ago, but we were just advised to come get things checked out again. This lady stood up, walked around the desk, and gave me a huge hug. She said, I am so sorry that you are going through this right now. Yinzers are tough, and you are going to get through this because you're a Yinzer now. And when you get through this, I want you to come back here and see me because I have season tickets to the Pens, and I'm going to give you some tickets. So they got me right back to a room. They put a little IV in, and then they took me to ultrasound. And when they took me to ultrasound, the tech started to do the exam. And then she looked at me and she said, you're not having any pain? And I said, oh, I'm having pain. I've been having pain. So they got me back to the room. And then what felt like the whole ER staff descended on my room. They took out the IV they started. They started 2 large bore IVs, one nurse working on each arm. And tech came up. She was putting heart monitor leads on my chest. I had the charge nurse of the ER standing at the head of my bed. She said, you have a large amount of blood in your stomach. You are lucky you came in today when you did. We're going to do emergency surgery on you tonight. The surgeon who was on call came to see me. He said, we've already done several of these surgeries here today. You are in the best of hands. I had the attending ER doc come in, his flock of residents and fellows that you have at a teaching hospital with him. They were doing exam after exam on me. And just in all the chaos of that room, I laid my head back on that pillow. I finally felt at peace. I was able to let out a sigh of relief because I had not realized for the past 4 days I had been holding on to my life. Thank you.